welcome back to FiddleHed Fiddle Lessons. Now I'm going to share with you 8 left-hand fingering exercises that will help you improve your technique and just kind of good general practice strategies. Some of them are more of like tips than exercises. So anyway, we're just going to run through the list, and I hope it's useful for you out there in fiddle land. Okay, so we're going to start with and a lot of this stuff I mentioned it in the videos on tunes over and over again, but I thought I'd make this video lesson to sort of consolidate all these ideas in one place. So the first fingering idea is to just practice without even playing it first, lifting your fingers, like placing them, and then lifting them just a teeny bit. So my third is lifting just like that much. Of course, I'm not going to ask you to hold the fiddle like this. Just hold it normally. I'm just doing it because I want to get the best possible view for you. So you can practice just lifting 3 a little bit. That can be hard for a lot of students. And same thing with 2. Just lift it a teeny bit while keeping 1 down. And now just lift 1 a little bit. And so then you can practice putting them up and down in a sequence, but with very little lift. I call this exercise little lift. All right? You can do that on other strings. Think of a spider crawling across the strings. It kind of just creeps along. All right? And then the next logical step would be to use little lift while playing with bowing. Alright, so I'm just barely lifting the fingers. With all these exercises I'm going to give you, you can do them like without even playing a lot of them, and then with simple like half scales or whole scales, and then you can try it on tunes. So the tune I'll use in this whole lesson is Kesh Jig, which is that's how it starts. And so you can practice little lift with like the first phrase, like even without playing, you can kind of hum it and move your fingers. Alright, so I think that'll be useful for you. Let's move on to the second fingering exercise, stop and finger. So there's a similar exercise for bowing called stop and rock. And so for stop and finger, what I want you to do is play it down on D, then slowly place your first and go up. Then slowly lift your first a little, and then put it down. So the key is to slowly change in order to make, and the point of this exercise is to have like a more precise finger movement and coordinate with the bow. So this exercise will help get rid of this problem. So you're playing like your finger's not getting down in enough time. This was really just helping each finger coordinate better and learn better. Place it, then go. Lift it, then go. Alright, and you can do that with all the different fingers. And let's say you're in a tune like Kesh Jig and you're having problems with some aspect of it, well then you can do the little lift there too. So let's take the beginning of Kesh Jig. So I tried to emulate what a beginner might do as mistakes. So what you could do is and maybe you'll find the hard part as you go along. Oh, I need to practice open A to 1. I need to practice 1 to 3. Then place the 3, then go up. Lift it, then. So it's very meticulously kind of taking the time, pausing the bow, taking the time to move with your finger, and then, so, okay, hopefully that makes sense. That's stop and finger. The next, third fingering exercise is simply to pluck things. So there's two ways to pluck. The first is to put your thumb on the side of the fingerboard. By the way, a lot of these tips I also have individual videos for, which I'll try to put links for. And then you simply use this, maybe because you're trying to play something really hard and the bow starts to sound bad because you're not paying attention to the bow. So leave the bow out of the equation is what I say, and just pluck. So let's do the beginning of Kesh Jig. And this way you work out some of the left hand problems and difficulties without the bow. You could also do it on scales, it might help you with that. You could also pluck in guitar position. I like to have my hand kind of resting below the fiddle and use my thumb. And so do this. And then after you've worked through something difficult with plucking, then go back to trying to bow it. Okay, moving on to exercise number 4. This is not really an exercise, it's just a way to check your tuning. Kind of a cool thing. If you're playing the 3rd finger on the D string, that note is G. I don't concentrate a lot on note names, but that's G. And so what you can do is play it in sequence or alternating with the open G. You're going to hear that it's in tune. If it goes out, kind of hear it. That's your tuning check. If you can do double stops and play them together, then you'll really hear if it's out. Slide it into tune. That's your tuning check. If you want to check A3, you play open D. And if you want to check E3, you play open A. Voila! To help you stay in tune on your own there. Alright, the 5th thing is throwaway bow. I probably just give you throwaway bow a little too much in different exercises and videos, but I think it's really important, that's why. So throwaway bow, if you haven't learned it, is just taking the bow. And so when beginners come to me and they start to learn to play for the first time, we do throwaway bow to get a big open sound. But what I want to encourage you to do is to use it to get a good fingered sound, alright? So in that way it's related to a finger exercise. So you may notice that the fingers notes don't ring quite as much as open strings. But if you use this throwaway bow up and down, then it will improve the tone of each fingered note, okay? And you can work your way all the way up a scale. But do it more slowly. And then you can use throwaway bow to slowly build up phrases of tunes. So like, well, oftentimes when people learn tunes, you may notice you do it too if you're a beginner. You may not even know you're doing it, but it sounds really boxy and scratchy. But that's mainly because you're not paying attention to the bow. So this is like calling your attention. Throwaway is calling your attention back to the sound and the bowing. And so we can slowly build up a phrase like this. So take the beginning of Kesh Jig, and we're going to start with D3. And that's sounding pretty good, and I'll add more. Okay? And if you're feeling okay, move on to the next note, which is A. Alright, now try that. See, we're just slowly going to build this phrase. Okay, that's sounding okay. The next note's going to be down on A1. Maybe you need to spend a little time to get that right. Now put the whole... You always end with a throwaway. throwaway magically kind of brings out your tone, makes it sing more. All right, and so we could keep adding. We could do the next phrase. Maybe you need to practice one note in there. Maybe A3 is hard, so you just do that a few times. And if you work through any tune slowly in this way, it'll probably sound a lot better. In fact, what I usually find is if we really do this process on the first quarter of a tune, spend like 5 minutes, 10 minutes getting really just this to sound good, using throwaway bow, then the rest of the tune kind of follows suit and it'll sound good too. All right, let's move on. The sixth thing I just call two bow practice, because basically I find that doing two bows is sort of easier than doing one bow for a lot of students. So say you're working on a scale, just do it with two bows. It's just a slightly bit easier than single bows. I don't even know why. All right, and then so and also if you're doing tunes, you may want to do it like say let's take in the second quarter of cash jig. So you might want to double up the notes. All right, just something about it, it makes it easier to practice certain difficult spots. All right, seventh thing I just call one note practice, and so basically you're just practicing long bows on fingered notes. Starting with, we could just start with D1. See how good you can make it sound. In order to really get the one note practice, you can try some of the other ideas I've given in this lesson, like throwaway. All right. In fact, a lot of these things kind of interact with each other, a lot of these ideas. So a lot of students want to continuously learn new tunes and kind of consume new tunes, but they don't pay attention to their sound. And so even if you think this is kind of too simplistic, you may want to just do it to see how good you can make each fingered note you play sound. You may want to pick like the first note of a tune. So for cash jig, it would be D3. Close your eyes. Another good thing about this, you can just really enjoy the simple, good sound of your violin and your fiddle. It's like a form of meditation or something. All right, and then the final bowing exercise is two-note practice, which is similar to this, but we're doing intervals. So we're practicing intervals that may be tricky. So it's like, for instance, open to 2. And you slowly cycle through that 2-note interval. So I did open to 2 there. All right, you may want to pick notes from the tune. Maybe 1-3 from cash jig is hard, so slowly cycle 1-3. And after you get it sounding good, one way you can do two-note practice is to add rhythms to it, make it more interesting, like triplets. Tucka. It's still part of that two-note practice. Finally, you can use it to practice kind of harder intervals, like intervals where you go across strings, like say A1 to D3. And you can integrate, like I said earlier, you can kind of combine a lot of these practice ideas, like throwaway bow. And then you can do back and forth with little lift, Try to barely lift the 3. All right. You can practice plucking it. That might help you get that hard interval. All right. And so on. You can do 2 bows. All right. So those are the 8 fingering tips. There's probably some other good ones I've left out. If you can think of anything, just put it in the comments field so other people can learn. You know, we are all learning together, right? I learn a lot of this stuff just from teaching students and watching what they do. So, well, I'm glad you made it to the end of another FiddleHed fiddle lesson. Take care. I'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching the video. Excellent.